Welcome to the Empowering Choices Parenting Podcast, and this is part 2, talking about taking away your kids' toys, which is, we love it so much, we wanted title. 2 of it, yes.
So you were giving us an intro to this episode here, Eric, just a second ago, so you want to repeat yourself as to why we're going at this again?
So if you saw our previous podcast and we talked,
and you should.
Yes. We talked a lot about the structure of how to help kids be able to, learn how to give up toys, sort through toys, trade toys in when they get new toys, things of this nature. But let's just say your kid's not having it and they're having a hard time. They're still highly resistive. It's looking like they're just not going to give things up. And so then what do you do as a parent? Because in that type of a scenario, you're just going to have a growing room that might be similar to, Sylvia Silver Stout would not take the garbage out. If anybody remembers the Shel Silverstein, and especially the illustrations. But if your kids are just not willing to part with their toys,
Are these advanced techniques? Is that where we're going for?
So I don't know if this is an advanced technique as it is more of as a parent, you're going to have to lean into it and initiate, And so, for instance, when, you may let your kid know, listen, this is where I'm involving you. And if you don't want to be a part of this, or you're not going to do this, or you're going to resist this, mommy and daddy are going to have to help you. Because you can't have as much as you have. And so either you get to be a part of it and help us reduce it down, and that can be a fun game, and we can plan something fun after we're done with that, and we can do it in stages, and you can have a part to say, what gets thrown away, what goes to Goodwill, what gets saved for a garage sale. Now, be careful with that one, because that can be a place where a kid can just be like, oh, it's still here.
Yeah.
And then they might retrieve it from the garage sale pieces. Or, as happened to me, your parents may do the great thing of putting it up like on Facebook garage sale. And someone such as me may purchase it. And it's a really cool, it was castles and things, that I had pulled in. And then 3 months later, I get a message going, yeah, my kid's not doing well without that toy. Can we buy it back? To which I have to go, no.
Wait, so recent history, this isn't you as a kid, this is recent history. You bought a toy off Facebook Marketplace.
For the playroom.
And then got a message from the parent later on saying, I'd please like it back.
Yep.
That's great.
And I think it was a month down the road.
Wow.
Yeah.
A fairly significant amount of time.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, can I have it back?
And they said, can I buy it back?
Sure. I mean, that's at least,
yes.
if you're going to make a request.
Was this like a majorly cool toy or
It was
something?
very cool. Yeah. And
my kid's not doing well with, I'm just digesting this. I hadn't heard that one before.
Well, and as I'm paying for it and picking it up, curbside with the mom there, the kid comes out or comes down the street. I can't remember what it was. And just coming over like, hey, what's going on? And the kid's like looking at the toy and looking at mom going, you're selling that?
It was a surprise to the kid.
It was kind of a surprise. And so the mom goes, listen, this has been in the garage for like 8 months.
Oh, wow.
You haven't played with this, in like 6 months before that. And the kid's like, yeah, but I want it. And she's like, no, we talked about this. This stuff's, it's time for it to go. And the sale's been made, and
so there's some things in that story that sound fairly reasonable.
Yes.
You hadn't played with it. It went in the garage. It's been sitting in the garage. You haven't asked about it. I'm selling it. We talked about it.
Yep.
Those all sound like things that I would recommend.
Yes.
And then the kid went, which, I mean, again, we don't fault the kid for that.
Not a bit. Yeah. And then the parent reached out, probably was like, look, I'll ask him. And so.
And that might not be an inappropriate.
Not at all.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I'll ask him.
Yeah. And I just sent back a message that said, yeah, that's not going to work.
Sure.
And so, and I never heard anything again, And so that's a good example of when it goes to the garage in the kid's mind.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily gone. It's still a part of their world.
Right.
And you have to be able to have those conversations.
Yeah.
I had Johnny Hex action figures, and I played with them a lot. As I'm growing up, I'm getting older, but I wanted to keep those.
Yeah.
And so I made it really, really clear to my parents, look, no, I want to keep these. I want to keep these. These are a part of the things I'm not going to let go of. So I still have them today, and there's going to be another shelf that'll go up in my office, and I'll display those up in there, because I had a great time with those. I don't have major amounts of my toys when I was a kid, but there were some that it's like, no, I'm going to keep that. That meant a lot. Mm-hmm. And we talked about it, and they were okay with me keeping some. Now, if your kid isn't going to let go of anything, and you've really got to be able to do this, you've told them, here's the ground rules. And then you kind of give them a little bit of time to be able to come back around and say, okay, maybe we could do this. But if they don't, when they go to school, if you have one of you still at home, during the day or part of the day, that's a great time to be able to go in there. You go into their room, and the number one thing that goes first is any type of trash, any type of garbage. Totally love to have boxes and cardboard boxes when I was a kid. I would make things out of them, if they were bigger boxes, and sometimes I'd ask for if my parents could get the refrigerator boxes or anything close to it, weren't they?
Yeah.
Make spaceships out of those,
I love boxes.
But they all had a time limit. Because my parents were like,
boxes, not forever.
Yep, not forever. When we went over to my best friend's house, his dad was an architect, but he knew somebody that had a refrigerator store. He got them so many refrigerator boxes. Nice. They made this incredible fort out of the open spare room out of these boxes. And it was during the summer, and he said 1 month.
Okay.
And he marked it on a calendar. He said, at the end of that, they're all coming out.
Right. These are going in the recycle bin.
Yep. And the kid, we were all like, well, what's going to go in here? He goes, doesn't matter. They're all coming out.
These boxes
in a
are
month.
being taken down.
Yeah. Yes. But you can have that much time to play with them and have fun. Great. We loved it. I think every day we were over there in that room, just constantly.
With several refrigerator boxes.
Yeah. Yes. Probably upwards of close to 24.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's an entire room.
Yes.
That's amazing.
That fort was an entire room.
That's amazing.
It was so much fun, but it had a time limit, and looking back, that was the right thing to do, is to put that time limit on that. If you have kids who have autism or Asperger's, you're going to have a harder time with them letting go of certain things, garbage, boxes, so forth. So you may have to do it out, when they're not there. Mm-hmm. I had a mom who said, how you've talked about, you get new presents at Christmas and then you switch out and they be a part of that. I got my 8-year-old daughter an iPad, and I was really hoping she would switch out a box. And so I just said, iPad or box, and she kept the box.
And that's where you have to follow through on the words that come out of your mouth.
And she goes, what do I do now? And I'm like, when she go to school? And we talked about that. She's just got to get the box out and help her daughter to then understand the beauty of having an iPad and what she can do with that.
But don't say things you don't mean, I suppose, would be maybe a better piece of advice there.
Well, and just be ready that sometimes there is going to be that kid that would be like, no, I'll take the box.
Right. iPad or a box. Are you kidding? I want the box.
Right. Because for a kid, their mind, their emotions, their imagination is already wrapped up in the box. The iPad is very different.
It's an unknown.
Yep.
It hasn't, made a place in their head yet.
You can't make it a spaceship. You can't make it a skateboard.
Yeah.
You can't make it a Frisbee. I mean, you do all these things with a box, right? And yet, when you do anything like that with an iPad that costs anywhere from $800 to $2,000,
they break.
Parents have a tendency to not react well.
When you use the iPad as a skateboard?
Or a Frisbee,
Yeah.
And so I totally get it, and I'm not faulting the kid. But that's one of the first rules is all garbage goes. We'll get that out, and then we'll see, what the landscape looks like. And totally, I mean, we tell our kids, look, if you don't learn these things and to how to pick up and do this, you'll be adults who aren't going to do it either. And that's when it goes bad. And I've worked with those adults.
Oh, sure. Yeah. We've seen adults who are like, oh, this didn't happen when you were.
Oh, yeah. Right. Yeah. I remember going into a group home with an adult, and the group home owners were like, they were furious because he wouldn't clean up his room. And I was like, all right, well, I'll go in and take a look. He's laying on his bed, and the trash in his bedroom was up to the bed, all over.
I have such a hard time, visual. I believe you,
right?
And I can't even wrap my head around that.
Neither could I until I saw it, and I was like, I just call him Billy. I'm like, Billy,
what's up, man?
There's a trash can in here somewhere, right? And he goes, yeah, it's right over there.
He knew exactly where it was.
I'm like, how did this happen? He goes, well, the trash just kept overflowing. And I'm like,
is there a big bin outside?
Right. What about it going outside? He goes, I'm too lazy.
Oh, that's funny.
I'm like,
I love the people who just straight up call out their own stuff because they're like,
Yep.
nobody made me, so I just didn't.
And I said, well, Billy, did you know that the people who own this house are not at all happy? He goes, oh, yeah, they were by this morning, 10 minutes before I got there.
I'm lazy. They haven't done enough about it. I know they're mad. What you going to do?
And that was kind of
calling it out.
Yes.
Yeah. So funny.
And I said, well, I think this is going to be a problem that's not going to go away. And he goes, yeah, I kind of figured that. And I'm like, I can't wait to hear how you solve this problem. And we went and did, what I was there to do. Okay. And I came later.
You weren't there to help him clean his room that day.
I was not. And traditionally, that's not really what my role was to clean people's, rooms or spaces. And
you said in a different role with a different kid but in this job, no.
In this job with adults, no. Yeah. And so I came back, later in the week, and that room was spotless.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, Billy, the garbage can.
Right, I see it.
He goes, yeah, I told you it was there. I was like, well, I didn't disbelieve you.
He was just super chill about the whole thing. That's the funniest
thing. And so we went, and I'm like, what happened? And he goes, well, I don't like cleaning things. I'm lazy. The guy down the hall likes money. I have money. So I offered him $25 to clean my room, and he did a great job.
He did a great job.
And I gave him the $25. And this guy had no less than $300 on him at all times, and I'm like, you solved the problem, Billy.
Right. I was going to say,
that's awesome.
I don't see a problem with this.
No. And so I was like, that sounds like a wonderful solution. Now they wanted to know, what was I going to do about him paying someone to clean his room? And I'm like,
I mean, there is a possible concern there because people in group homes sometimes get financially taken advantage of. So you'd want to dig into it a smidge.
Sure. But no, it seemed like, they had already set up a verbal contract, and he was going to do it once a week, and he was going to pay him. And, the other guy needed money, and, he liked to clean. Yeah, it was great. So that all just, is to highlight that what you're teaching your kids about how to clean their spaces, that really can sink in well and can help them, not wind up in a situation like that. Mm-hmm. Now that you have all the garbage out of there, now you're looking at the toys. And so evaluating, what are the toys that they really play with the most? Those are the ones that you really don't want to exit the room, But if you can identify the ones that they've gotten too old for, broken toys are next. You identify the ones, that might be very cheap ones that, are coming from, the treasure boxes, or they're coming from McDonald's. Those could be things that you gather up first in order to see what that looks like in the space once those are gone. And then the things that, you haven't seen them play with in a year. Kind of that old rule in spring cleaning. If you haven't touched it for a year, you let it go and see where you're at with that. And then make your moves out of their room with those said toys, books, pictures, however that's going to work, and a part of this is understanding that the kid is using their thinking out of the emotional center of the brain. So when they colored Mickey Mouse in the coloring book, they may be really, really proud of how they did when they were coloring those pictures, and that's wonderful. But the part they have to understand is that that doesn't mean you keep it forever.
Well, I mean, I tell people repeatedly, usually in my house, it's like, you can't keep everything. The world's too big to fit under this roof, man.
Right.
Like, it's just, you can't.
And so
Impossible.
we're helping them develop those skills of letting things go, triaging what can go, what can stay. You know, I have some of the pictures I drew when I was a kid, and, you know, I think that's great. But I think back, and I did a lot of drawing as a kid.
Sure.
There's no way.
If you had the ability to see them all in the same place at the same time, they'd fill this room.
Yeah. And I like your idea from yesterday, Joss, you know, now in a digital world.
Yeah.
When I had pictures when I was a kid that I was really, really proud of and really, really wanted to keep, my parents would get me a mat, you know, like a mat that goes in a picture frame. And I would tape it onto the mat, and then I put it on my wall. And
there was a limited number of those spaces on your wall.
Yep. And I still have those pictures. You know, I drew my own superheroes, you know, and so I still have them, you know, put away right now. When I had pictures in school, I was really proud of. Those are framed and on my office wall at home. I have one of Smaug as he's going down in the water, and I have one of Conan the Barbarian.
Nice.
You know, and so I'm super proud of those.
So I something just made me think of this. I don't know if I came up with this or if my parents did, but somewhere along probably 5th or 6th grade, I just established this box, and it was for anything that was memorable that I would want for the rest of my life. And kind of the idea was that if I went on a trip or I did something and I had a few things that were interesting, I would put them in the box. But that concept just then kind of lived, and it was easy for me to get rid of stuff because, well, I went to Canada and I have this little Canadian flag or this thing that's in the box as a memento, and then everything else I didn't care about. And so I did find that box recently, and it was fun going through it, and I was happy that I had those things, but it's like a box, you know, to represent, you know, 15, 20 years of my, you know, childhood. If the childhood went to 20, which mine did. So.
Right. One of the coolest things that I got to see is when we went out to my mom's parents' farmhouse, and her room upstairs, she had a hope chest. And a hope chest has been a thing, you know, for like thousands of years, I think. And I got to, with her permission, go through the hope chest.
That's cool.
It was so cool. And sometimes she'd come up there and she'd explain, you know, where she got this or how she got that or why this was important, or, you know, so I got to hear those pieces. I still have, you know, some of the things from her hope chest. For guys, I think, you know, like when I was growing up, it was, you know, more of like a tin box or a cardboard box. If you, in middle school, you know, you got to make the wood chest that had the big dome top, that would become kind of a keepsake place. That's cool. I like the idea, you know, I think it's great. And, you know, I think it's great that, you know, kids, as they find other treasures and as they're growing up, they're going to then learn to evaluate those pieces.
Right. Yeah.
So in your, if the kid is at school and you go into their room, like there's going to be fallout when they come home. So what would you say for advice for dealing with that?
You're going to have to know your kid first, so to know what that fallout's going to look like and what kind of distractions that can help. You know, and
I suppose even before that, like there's a kid out there for whom you tell them that you're going to do it. Like you're going to go to school and like this stuff didn't get cleaned up, so mommy's going in there.
Well, you told them that ahead of time.
Sure.
You know, because if you tell them on that day, they're not going to have a good day at school probably. And they may even come home, you know. And so what you've already done is you've said, listen, if you don't do this and you don't want to be a part of this, we get it and it's okay. We will take care of it at a time. Now they're going to try to pin you down, but they're going to try to pin you down so that they can defend their stuff, defend their fort. I totally get it. Don't let them pin you down. It's just, you know what? We're not going to tell you when. It's just going to happen. You have this amount of time to be a part of it. If not, after that, it'll happen at an undisclosed time, but not an undisclosed location. It will be your room. And then you go from there. When they come home, then one of the first things you're going to want to do is go, so let me tell you about what happened today at home.
Right. Yep.
And you're noticing things are different. And there are things that are gone. Now there's probably going to be upsetness. There's probably going to be tears. Hopefully you already have a structure that handles some of these things. If your child needs to have some time by themselves to, sit on the bed or be in their room, you can come back and go, all right, let's talk some more about this. And tell me what is so upsetting about this to you, and get specific. Well, I lost all this. And then you can say, yes, but don't you play with those more? Mm-hmm. Well, those were McDonald's toys, or those were broken toys. Remember the rule? Okay, but what about these toys? I see you play with these Hot Wheels all the time. Aren't they fun? And so you're bringing that back to the things that they really enjoy the most, which will then churn up emotions of enjoyment with those things. Don't expect them to just be on the logical bandwagon right away. Mm-hmm. It could take 20 minutes. It could take a couple hours. It could take that evening. It could take a couple days. You just have to be in it for the long game, to where you're going to keep reinforcing, this is why it had to go. It's not the last box in the world. There will be other ones. They will have time limits. You did a wonderful job. If they go with your advice and take pictures, you might be showing them, look, I have pictures of your pictures. I wonder what we can do on the computer with these pictures of the pictures that you'll now have forever. You might, if if you have time to be there during the day, and a lot of people, both people work in the house, but let's just say, because if this was at my house when I was growing up, there would already be the smell of chocolate chip cookies. Okay. And so that's a distraction. Yeah. Because, I think I went through this like once or twice.
Oh, you've lived this.
Yeah. And so you're upset, but then you're like, smells good, but I'm mad. But
smells good, but I'm mad.
100%. So you're making their nose fight against them in that emotional component. Now, you may have picked up cookies. You may have, I'm just using cookies. It could be anything. It could be a TV show that might be playing that they like, and they can hear it, and it's drawing them. So you're using other things to help distract them from the emotions they're feeling at the time. It's not so that they just pass over it, but it helps to lessen those emotions, and then you can still be able to talk about it and process it and go, yeah, I'm sure this does suck. This is hard. It's hard when we have to let go of things. Go back in your own childhood. If you had times like this and go, yep, I remember when my parents and this was a thing. I remember it having to learn some of these things. You have to let go of things. You can't have everything. And you have to learn how that works. Because if you grow up as an adult, you probably won't be able to buy a house big enough.
You won't.
I've known people, and they were a couple, didn't have any kids, and she had 7 storage units.
Oh wow.
God.
Yeah. So
full of whatever.
Exactly. And the house, I would hear him talk about, I have this area I can move to. I have this counter that I can work with. The microwave's not covered.
It was a list of things.
Right.
There was a handful of places that weren't covered.
Yeah. He was mad one time because, he wasn't able to, see some of the Ducks games. And I'm like, didn't you say you had a space that was kind of cleared and open? He goes, well, yeah, but the TV's not there. I'm like, I think they have some sales on them. He's like, buy another TV. Well, why not? She has 7 storage units, so he bought another TV to put in his area, In
the scenario where your kid comes home and you've moved a bunch of stuff out of their room, I'm imagining you'll want to be thoughtful about where that stuff went and how, I don't know, if you put it in the garbage can, does your kid know to go rifling through the garbage can?
Some
so
kids
just like think ahead.
Yep. Does
it have to be physically like already at the Goodwill by the time the kid comes home, or some equivalent?
Right. And to certain different scenarios, yes.
Right. It's just something to think about.
Yeah. Like with the example I gave in the last one of my dad coming with the garbage sack. I've heard of other parents doing that. And for the first time, and I think Super Nanny suggested this as well, for the first time, that bag went somewhere like in the garage or the basement or somewhere the kid wouldn't normally just look. And then they might, a week later talk about that and how are you going to take care of your things? And okay, this one time, this comes back.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Our magic wand approach, if you can undo something sometimes.
Other than that, because I've also had the parents who are like, well, that's every time. And I'm like, and you're asking me why they're not cleaning their room.
Right.
If it doesn't go goodbye.
Yeah.
And then we get to the real issue. That costed a lot of money.
The parents have a feeling about what happened.
And I'm like, I'm totally hearing you. And you're right. And in order for that to really do what you want to do in your parenting, you're going to take a hit.
A great story from a comedian who was talking about growing up and like their parents following through on what they said. And I don't remember what exactly the scenario was, but they had this Game Boy. And I think it was like if the Game Boy went to school one more time, the parent said like, I'm literally throwing it in the trash can. And the parent found out that it had gone to school one more time. So they're walking back to their apartment and they pass by like the garbage chute. That was like the thing in their apartment. And they stop and they ask the kid, do you want to put it in or do you want me to? And they and the parent said like, that noise of that Game Boy going down that garbage chute was the loudest noise they've ever heard in their life. Because they decided, they're like, I'm going to literally follow through on this thing that I said.
And that, although, yes, you're watching money that you've earned and spent and given, that can be some of the best money you've ever spent.
Oh, it could be. Right? Yeah, because what are the non-material things that you gained out of that interaction? Like the relationship with your kid, the lessons that they've learned, the human that they're going to, have a trajectory to be more like in the future.
Yeah. I remember when I was in grade school and there was a little kid named Pat, and Pat came from a very wealthy family in the town. And me and Joe were at Pat's house and, we were playing on, one of the original handheld games, football. And, we're passing it back and forth. We're having a great time. He got frustrated because he got tackled and he spiked that football.
The electronic toy system got smashed into the
floor. And Joe and I are like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you did that. Why did you do that? That cost so much money, because we're like little kids. And he just looked at us and goes, it's not a big deal. My mom would just buy me a new one.
Right.
And we're like,
this thing you'd never had before.
Right.
Oh, we'll just buy one.
And so both Joe and I went home and we were dumbfounded. Like we couldn't believe it.
What world is this?
Yeah. We've been taught you have to take care of things. You do things like that. They don't get replaced. You get grounded. There's systems in place because, there's money that you just don't throw away like that. And both Joe and I had told our parents and our parents both looked at us and said, yeah, that's why you don't go to Pat's house.
Oh, interesting.
And they're like, wait a minute, and they're like, yeah, we understand.
We're aware.
It's a different world at Pat's house.
And it's not your world, and you don't want to be learning his lessons.
Yes.
Because your world won't work like his world.
Right. And literally the next day he had a new one at school.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes.
That's some money flying out of some bank accounts.
It really was. And then that's a piece that in order to help your kids take care of their toys, there's so many lessons that are going to be lifelong lessons. That's why that going down the chute can be such an incredible lifelong lesson. I take care of not just, the toys that I've had, but I mean, when I got married, almost 30 years ago, we still have the wok. The wok that you cook in.
W-O-K.
Yep.
I'm like,
Yeah.
the what?
The wok.
W-O-K.
Yeah. W-O-K. And we replaced the toaster like a couple years ago that we got, as a gift, for wedding gift.
It'll help you financially to take care of stuff.
And we would just laugh like, oh my gosh, our stuff lasts so long. And we're like, well, we both got taught you take care of stuff, and so, there's going to be things that are just going to give out just, poor quality that it was made with. But if it's not, I mean, stuff lasts a long time in my house.
My parents still own the Kirby vacuum cleaner they bought when I was a kid.
Right.
All right. Well, do we have any more advice for helping your kids? What would that be? I guess it's really helping your kids, period. Mm-hmm. And then helping your kids with their toys and their possessions. Nope, we ran out of stuff for this one.
I think we're good.
That's
all right,
it.
Let's call this one a wrap.
So, all right. Well, definitely let us know if you've ever thrown toys out that got dug out of the trash, or if you didn't do it as smart as some of the methods that we're talking about here today in the comments. We'd love to hear about that, and we will see you on the next episode.